Yeah, I'm Steve from Zounds. Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm Lawrence from Zounds, guitarist.
So, can you tell me a little about your set tonight? How you went down?
Yeah, well, it seemed to go down really well. It's only like the second gig we've done in a couple of years, and I felt, I thought we were a bit untogether, but people seemed to be into it, and much the same as it always was, really. But, yeah, it was good. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So, going back to the beginning, when the band formed, can you tell me a little bit about the music scene in general and what the atmosphere was like then?
Yeah, well, I think when we very first got a band together, it must have been in about '77, and it was kind of like a sort of jamming band, but as the times were changing, and we just sort of got harder and faster, really, and I think it sort of took off when we did our first record for Crass Records, and we were kind of involved in that, anarcho-punk scene a bit. Well, completely, I suppose. And it was all very new and different, in those days, and it was pioneering, I suppose. And it's all ended like this. Big hits of the 70s and 80s shows at Blackpool Winter Gardens, opposite Roy Chubby Brown.
So you mentioned Crass Records, that was quite a big niche in the punk market. Is there any more you can tell me about that?
Yeah, well, that whole sort of, anarcho-punk scene, I think, was very much on the fringe of the, I think by the time our record came out, the first punk bands had kind of, all disintegrated through, self-abuse and desires to be rock stars, and I think there was that kind of, there was a kind of a desire for music that I think was a bit more, a bit less show busy, really, because I see a lot of the original punk stuff as actually being, in the end, being quite show busy, and I think we were always very sort of like grassroots, and it's like when we went to Rough Trade, we started to record for Rough Trade, they would get us these gigs in these kind of trendy rock clubs and stuff, and it was never really where we were at, so we were very kind of self-sufficient, and, part of our aim, I think, was to destroy the music business as much as sort of be involved in it. So, we operated on a very kind of grassroots level in those days.
Steve would write songs about his life, and without any, they were never contrived or designed to be big hits or anything like that. So
sure enough, they weren't.
The kind of audience we got were people that were looking for a bit of integrity, and that's what Steve's songs provided.
So, can you tell me how, why you got involved with punk rather than any other form of music?
It was just the name of music when we were making it.
Yeah, it wasn't a sort of thing of sort of like choosing to be involved in that sort of scene. It was just very natural for us. I mean, I think we felt very much on the fringes of stuff, particularly in the late 70s. A lot of the time I just didn't know what was going on in the world anyway, because we were so out of it. And I just feel that at that time there was so much frustration with things being the way they were, and that was naturally reflected in a lot of people's music, and it was certainly reflected in our music. And I guess, there were a lot of other people that felt like that.
It wasn't just the sound of the music, it's the way we organised things as well. I mean, we didn't want to get involved in the record industry at all.
So that whole sort of do-it-yourself ethic was very important to us, actually. So we did sort of shun the kind of traditional sort of music biz route. So it was very important to us to organise stuff ourselves.
To organise our own tours and put our own bus together and off we went.
Very different to this kind of thing, which is sort of, kind of institutionalised, and I know, kind of institutionalised, and I know there are a number of, our old fans who feel that maybe we haven't got any integrity, maybe because we played here, but, we did, and that's that.
There's many different versions, myths and tales of how and where punk came from. To you, where did punk come from?
Well, it was.
From the media, wasn't it? The same place as hippies came from.
No, I don't think that. I take a sort of a conjunctional view of history, and that things happen because of a whole number of different factors. So, while there are popular myths about punk rock, and was it an invention of Malcolm McLaren, or was it like the authentic voice of working class youth in council estates, and was it a reaction against sort of the way that hippies had been hijacked by a kind of rock aristocracy? I mean, I think all those things were all those things helped within the sort of formation of punk, and you have to remember it was the time of in the 70s of a whole number of crises, oil crises, which led to a sort of crisis in vinyl, energy crisis, 3-day-a-week miners' strike, all that stuff, I think made people feel very powerless, and so, people were using music, not always in a very articulate way, to express those kind of feelings. And I really feel there was a kind of desperation around in those times, that things were getting really bad and out of control, which is the same mythology. Not the same mythology. All those things that created punk, I think, also went on to sort of help create the situation for sort of Thatcherism as well. In fact, people were looking for ways out of what was, a pretty drab situation.
So, do you think the punk actually changed anything?
Well, who knew who could have foretold when it all started that it would end up just behind the pier in Blackpool in 1996?
Well, I think it certainly changed some people, and people change things, but it's if you see punk as at certain levels being kind of a sort of a cry for sort of like a change, really. Without being too sentimental about it, quest for some kind of better world or a better way of doing things, and to, a sort of destruction of all the age-old sort of corruption and power and everything. I suppose it sort of completely failed because, pretty soon after punk came along, came the dreaded Thatcher, and a whole era which has been concerned with money, wealth, style, the whole idea of style over content, which punk was, I think, in its purer forms, was the antithesis of that, But actually, punk, in many ways, has just become another uniform you can buy, another little niche market. So, I'm quite a pessimistic, depressing, miserable sort of person. So that's my view. Other people might think that it has changed things really positively and it's been really good. It's for you.
So, moving on to this year, how did you react when you heard the Sex Pistols were to reform?
Sorry?
How did you react when you heard that the Sex Pistols were to reform?
Well, I reacted with a mixture of cynicism and amusement. Johnny Rottens is kind of a high-profile media figure. He represents certain things. I don't think, the Sex Pistols ever set out to change the world, And if they did, I don't think I want the same sort of world as Steve Jones, So it's to be expected, really.
Well, if rock stars like them don't die young, then they're condemned to spend the rest of their life reforming for reunions and
and I kind of agree with what Johnny Rotten said. Well, why shouldn't they? They're working class boys. They've got no skills. They can't do. There's not much else they can do, and so they can get together and play their old hits. And I'm sure people with more integrity than ourselves think that we're probably doing that on a lower level as well. But I actually live very close to Finsbury Park, so I hear all those concerts from my garden, and they sounded really good actually. I sat in my garden, had a little barbecue and a glass of lemonade, and I really enjoyed it.
Alright, so to you, what is the best thing that came out of punk?
Fucking hell. Just the realisation that people can do things for themselves and be self-reliant, not for themselves but do things for each other, and can organise things between themselves and are not necessarily dependent upon, you know, a corrupt sort of capitalist organisation like a record company or promoter or whatever. And those kind of, you know, those kind of feelings of solidarity and, you know, togetherness. Again, I mean, it sounds a bit sentimental and cliched, but those kind of things are the things that I remember most, really. You know, and the inspirational music and poetry of Patti Smith. That's my favourite things about the punk.
Right, so what would you say was the worst thing that came out of punk?
Should we name them? The bands?
No. People who just mindlessly follow it like another fashion in an unthinking way, and the institutionalisation of tattooing and body piercing, which now means very little other than, you know, it's another image to buy off the shelf. So, yeah, the institutionalisation of rebellion, you know, as a sort of continuation of that whole rock and roll myth. Waste of time.
So, finally, in as few words as possible, what does punk mean to you?
It means never having to say you're sorry. And Lawrence?
Well, there's a chance to express your natural exuberance and joy the vivre.
Yeah, peace, love and understanding.
Anything else you'd like to mention before we wind up?
No, I think...
We'll be expecting essays in on Monday, won't we?